Hi everyone, welcome back to our fourth video in the series where we discuss how enterprises combat fraud by optimizing operations. In the previous video, we discussed how technology is becoming central to enterprise strategy for combating fraud. Most of the FCC professionals we interact with, they have mentioned that technology is going to witness highest increase in spend in 2023-24. So it's a key enterprise priority right now, especially in areas such as compliance policy or activity tracking, regulatory reporting, or trade surveillance. Having said that, one of the persistent questions that we get is, will technology take over operations or BPS part of FCC value chain? Well, the reality is that humans, they are indispensable part of the FCC value chain. So technology tools, they play the role of enabler for smoother operations, but are practically support functions for the actual decision makers, which are FCC professionals. So if we talk about geographies like UK, on an average, three-fourths of the FCC budget of enterprises, especially financial institutions, they are dedicated to talent or professionals operating within FCC value chain, and one-fourth of the spend is on technology. So it's very subjective that what the ideal mix between talent and technology should be, and it's unique to every organization's need. But some redressal in this balance is needed, where the enterprises, they adopt more of the process orchestration or automation tools to streamline the operations. So the human or the FCC professional, they can focus more on difficult investigations or complicated exception handlings, those kind of operations. So BPS and ITS, both these functions, they are more like hand in glove, and investment is needed from enterprise and on both front. So to focus on augmenting both the skilled workforce and enabling technologies, enterprises, they typically follow either of the two routes that we are going to discuss. One is to establish global capability centers or captives, especially in offshore locations like India or Philippines, which typically manage more transactional FCC processes. And then there would be some onshore or nearshore centers for more sensitive information. The other route is basically the outsourcing it to third party professionals or third party service providers, which are basically IT BPS providers operating in the space. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we have seen some increase in outsourcing or openness to outsourcing by financial institutions, primarily driven by cost pressures in adverse macroeconomic situations or to reduce the time to market of their FCC solutions or the stringent regulatory oversight by regulators. Now, my colleague Subba, he will double down on both these routes and share some very interesting industry case studies with us. Over to you, Subba.
Thank you, Abhilasha. So one of the ways I think my colleague Abhilasha has already highlighted is the captives and the GCC routes. Basically, we have seen in the past, the captives and GCCs are no innovation as such. They have been one of the part of the banking system for some time, and they are basically done in terms to reduce the cost and overall help the banks to source the talent that is required for these critical operations. Now, one of the main areas and locations that we have seen is India being one of the main locations, and some of these banks which have actually formed their captives and their global capability centers are highlighted over here, which is basically one of them being Citibank, the other one being the Standard Chartered. Citibank has one of the biggest global capability centers, which marks around like almost an FTE base of like more than 30,000. Some of these capabilities are not just for FCC but for other activities as well. But one of the key areas they do outsource is the risk. Now, one of the other thing that is kept in mind is like these capability centers are actually something which do not even which are not just helping them in terms of the talent pool and their operations, but as well as to help them through their data securities as well. Given these are very critical data, they are kept in house. And similarly, one more bank which we'd like to highlight would be the Societe Generale, which does have a more of a nearshore approach and does have a global capability center in Romania. Now, that being the case of the captive and GCCs, the other route that is being taken by some of these banks, which are more open towards outsourcing and more sourced open towards getting into partnership with different vendors are the third party partner and managed services. And given there is a list of very much exhaustive a long list of players which are actually present in the market, but given there are some of these players which are actually we are highlighting in today's video, one of them being WNS, which has a tool called fraud propensity scoring, which is a tool that helps you to understand which basically allocates score based on the basis of profile activities, and which gives you a tendency of an individual or the business conducting any kind of frauds, and which helps you in prevention of future fraud related activities. Similarly, Genpact and TCS are some of the key players in the market who have been present all across the financial crime and compliance value chain, fraud being one of their special focus area. And there are players like Wipro with their offerings of Wipro Homes have dedicated offerings towards especially insurance fraud capabilities as well. So you can see like the fraud, dedication and the offerings that are present towards the fraud management services are not limited to just BFS. It's incorporating a lot of other areas as well. Now we can talk about is in terms of like we have seen the different routes that could be utilized in terms of combating frauds. But the question remains, which would be the right way for the enterprise to combat these frauds? In the next series of videos, we are going to talk about the AIM framework, which will help you to understand which is the right way for you, for the enterprise to go about choosing one of these selected pathways. Looking forward to that discussion with you all. Stay tuned.